division in the finance department. We're in charge of the waste hauling contracts with Marburg and BFI, and we run all the recycling programs in the city, residentially and in the commercial sector as well. In 2005, we asked the City Council to consider a solid waste strategic plan to get us to 70% diversion, or to divert 70% of all the solid waste that the city is generating from landfill disposal. The council approved that in September 2005, and it included a number of programs and projects and efforts to get the city diverting the majority of its waste stream. And the policy was actually, or the document at the end was actually modified to actually say we will maximize diversion, not necessarily just 70%, but we're going to maximize the amount of material we divert from landfill disposal. So why new rates? Why a new food scraps program? What we're here to talk about today. A new rate structure was one of the components of the strategic plan to provide businesses and residential customers as well. But this is just focused on the business sector. But to provide the customers a greater financial incentive to recycle more, to divert more from the landfill. And why food scraps? Well, the food scraps program was actually one of the major pieces of the strategic plan. We are looking at it as a methane gas producer. If it's buried in a landfill in an anaerobic environment, it actually does generate a good deal of methane. And there's a lot of food scraps out there in our waste stream that currently do get disposed. Logistics for this meeting: we have bathrooms right outside this door. And if you want to get up and move and stretch, feel free to do so. This is going to be a couple of hours. We will take a 5-minute break close to the 11 o'clock hour when we start talking, or before we start talking about the food scraps component of the program. So far, to date, we've made several presentations on the proposed new rates for the business sector. We presented to the Chamber of Commerce's Government Affairs Committee, the Restaurant and Lodging Association's General Membership meeting, and the Downtown Organization's board meeting, all last month. And then we've also made 2 of these presentations, this rate study or proposed rates public forums prior to today. It was on April 20th and April 28th in the Faulkner Gallery in the library. We have one more presentation like this that we're going to be giving on the 19th of May. That one is at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's in this same room, in the David Gephardt room. And we're also going to take this presentation from today and turn it into a video that can be uploaded onto the website, sbrecycles.org. So for those folks that aren't able to join us here today physically, they can actually watch the video and watch the presentation on the internet. There are some handouts that we've put on the side of the room here. One is the actual direct mailing that we sent out to 1,700 businesses in the city to let them know about the proposed new rate structure that the city is considering, to also let the business community know about these forums and all of the materials and information that's out there that's available for the rate study, the details, the history, the whys, the way the city is approaching this project. And there's also a handout that really explains well the general concept, the kind of the overarching policy goals of the rate study and why it's happening. But I wanted to acknowledge the flyer that came out from the Greater Santa Barbara Restaurant and Lodging Association, put together by Michael Jordan, who's here today. This piece actually summarizes the rate study and all of our outreach efforts very, very well. He took information from our handouts, he grabbed the information off of our website, and turned it into an excellent page and a half describing the project. So if you don't have this, please notify us or contact us at the Environmental Services Division, and we'll get it to you, or you can get it from the Restaurant and Lodging Association as well. I want to thank Karen Gumtow, the lead staff on this project, who's really coordinated the research and the development of our model for the proposed new rates. Leif and Eric for doing all that they have done in these presentations, and Lisa for helping out with all the logistics here as well. All of the comments that are made today or questions that are asked, we're going to be recording and taking back at some point to the electeds, to the Solid Waste Committee, let them know what the issues were and what the concerns are of the business community. They've made it clear to us as staff that we need to communicate to them what the concerns are and what we're doing to address those. So with that, let's get started with the presentation itself. So why recycle? We want to receive feedback, as I said, and answer any questions that are raised today, and then let you all know about the additional resources that we've made available out there, both as just staff resources and internet web-based information. Why do we recycle, or why do we divert from the landfill? This is composting and recycling, actually. There are environmental issues with landfills, with all landfills. Ours is 26 miles up the coast. It's the Tehigas landfill, owned and operated by the County of Santa Barbara. It's actually a very well-run landfill. It's won an award from SWANA, the Solid Waste Association from North America. It is an excellent facility as a landfill. However, all landfills have the potential to impact groundwater. The less that we put in the ground, the less that we bury, the less potential impact to groundwater. All landfills generate greenhouse gases. There is, as required by federal law, there's a foot of soil or alternative daily cover or some sort of daily cover that's placed on top of the trash at the end of every operational day. And that, while it keeps out the birds and it keeps out the potential vectors, it creates an anaerobic environment. It seals the waste in place. And a large fraction of our waste stream is biodegradable or compostable. It gets placed and buried in the landfill and starts to break down relatively quickly. And in an environment, in an anaerobic environment, it actually generates methane, CH4. And a lot of that methane that's generated actually is emitted through the dirt or through the cover at some point in the first 3 or 4 months. So diverting the compostable or the biodegradable fraction of the waste stream is important for us before it becomes a greenhouse gas. Keeping it from getting buried in the first place is the most effective approach, really, to minimize that. And then resource conservation. This is something that we don't talk about a lot, but we should, and I think we will talk about it more as we move forward. But for every can of trash or for every container of recyclables or whatever the product is that we've consumed and it's ended up on the side of our house or the side of our business, there's actually approximately 70 containers of that equal size of trash that it took to get there. That's from the extraction of the resources from the ground, transporting those, preparing those for transport, or transporting those products, getting them to a refining facility or processing facility that prepares the product or the raw material further for manufacturing or as an input to as a feedstock for some manufacturing process. Taking that product, putting it on a truck, shipping it to the market or shipping it to a distribution center. From there it goes to market. From there it goes onto the shelf and then we consume it. We take it home with us or we take it to our business and we use it. And then what we don't use, that part, the packaging or the portion of the product that we don't actually use or consume, gets tossed in the trash. Anyhow, there are approximately 70 times the amount of resources that go into every unit of resource that we actually throw away. So when we recycle or when we compost, we're saving a great deal more than we realize as far as natural resources. One more click. And on the practical side or the economic side of the equation is the financial issues or the issues that are related to disposal or the cost of disposal. Our options are essentially threefold. When Tehigas, the landfill that we currently use up on the Gaviota coast, when it runs out of space, which is estimated to be approximately 2022, we will have the option of either permitting and siting a new landfill shipping our trash to a remote facility, either by transfer trailer or by rail, by train, or building a conversion technology facility. All of these options are quite expensive. The county did attempt to site and locate, I should say, a new landfill about 8-9 years ago, and it was a very, very, very challenging project. Of course, nobody wants a landfill in their backyard, but when 51 or 52 dots showed up on the county map, it became an extremely contentious project, and it was shelved or stopped shortly after that first couple of public meetings, when the public came out to say, we don't want landfills, we don't want new landfills in our county. So then the next option is, if we can't site a new landfill, if it is not possible to put a landfill in another canyon in the county, it's shipping it somewhere to a remote facility, either by truck or by rail. There are some mega landfills out in the desert in Riverside and Imperial counties that can handle our waste. Those are several hundred miles away, however, and that, as you can imagine, would add a great deal of cost to our disposal. And then the third option is building a conversion technology facility. We are actually in the process right now with the county. We're partnering with them on an RFP that's scheduled to be released this summer to seek out potential vendors for a conversion facility up at the Tahigas landfill. These can actually take the fraction of the waste stream that's considered residual and turn them into a smaller mass. It reduces them either through heat or other chemical processes. It reduces the mass, and it also can generate some electricity. It's a great concept. It's a great potential, and it may be where we end up going with our waste management system in the future. However, this is also quite expensive, anywhere between $60 and $80 million for a facility like that. So the bottom line is, disposal is going to become very expensive in the next 13, 14 years when the Tahigas landfill runs out. So this is a breakdown of the total waste stream that gets disposed from the city of Santa Barbara. Not the total generated, but what actually ends up in the landfill as of the end of December 2008. The single-family sector, as you can see, is about a quarter of the total disposed waste stream. Multi-unit residential, 17%, and businesses, almost 60% of the disposed waste stream. So the vast majority. Good morning, council member. The vast majority of the waste stream is from the business sector. Go ahead, Eric. So why are we pursuing our first proposed rate change or rate structure for the business sector? Well, because the majority of the waste is coming from the business sector that's going to the landfill, and the recycling rate, as you can see here, is approximately 12%, but coupled with the green waste diversion, about 14%. There's a lot of opportunity for us to divert material from the landfill. And what we know from the waste board, from our waste sorts or waste characterizations, is the vast majority of business waste is recyclable. In so many applications, it's just cardboard, it is paper, it's plastic applications that can be diverted and recycled somehow. The current rate structure does provide some opportunities or some financial incentives to recycle, but not in all situations. The general rule of thumb for customers that have a dumpster, meaning one of those large containers that's on wheels from 2, 3 to 4 cubic yards, the general rule of thumb is that those are 50% the cost of trash. So if you're paying $100 for a trash dumpster, you're paying $50 for a recycling dumpster. However, in the existing rate structure, there's a rental fee that's associated with that, so it reduces that 50% discount quite a bit. And we've been putting it out there for several years now. We've been trying to promote that 50% discount, but in a lot of situations, it hasn't been great enough. It hasn't been enough incentive really to get businesses to want to take that, or the rate structure hasn't been consistent enough to actually maintain that 50% discount. In some applications or in some situations when we're looking at carts, we're going from a dumpster down to a cart, there were no savings available. So the new rate structure would maintain savings and actually increase those potentials. And what we've decided, or what we've essentially concluded, is that the business sector needs more opportunity, needs a greater opportunity to save money by diverting material from the landfill. That's exactly what we're hoping to achieve with this new rate structure, this proposed rate structure. So what does the new proposed structure do, or what does the study, what did it hope to accomplish, and what were the goals? Again, we wanted to provide an even greater incentive. We wanted to make that 50% savings larger. As a matter of fact, what we did was we made it 85%. The cost of recycling, composting, and green waste were actually 85% less than trash disposal. The overall revenue that's generated, the business sector generates approximately $8 million in revenue for BFI and Marburg on an annual basis. The overall revenue that this new structure generates is $8 million. There is an additional $340,000 approximately that's generated for the potential outcome of us actually falling short. For us to keep the haulers whole, we would have this extra $300,000 or so to make up that shortfall. But we're required as a city, with our franchise agreements with the haulers, to keep them whole, to keep them revenue neutral. So we have built in a little bit of a cushion for that possibility. But this is not a revenue-generating proposal. This project was not designed, or this new structure was not put together to generate monies for the city to help with any budget situation or budget shortfalls for next year. This is aimed at creating the same amount of revenue every year. Also, we have our food scraps program that's out there on a pilot basis currently. It's being offered free of charge to only a limited number of customers because it is only a pilot, and we currently don't have rates for that program. What this new rate structure does do, aside from increasing the incentives for these diversion services, is actually create a rate for food scraps. So a business can call us up or call up the hauler and subscribe to the service, and there is a bill code, there's a rate for that service. We have to date not had a rate for the service. And then thirdly, we've been told by the Solid Waste Committee for a couple of years that we really need to work on making the bills easier to understand. They have not been easy to understand. There has been information on a business's bill or a resident's bill that says you have trash service and this is the cost. There has not been a great deal of information about the quantity, the frequency of collection. It's been very difficult for a business to actually self-audit and know what they're receiving for how much money every month. So this rate study really does allow us to increase the clarity or improve the understandability of customers' bills. Any questions at this point? Okay, so some impacts or samples for the customers in the business sector. This one is a customer that has 2 dumpsters. I believe it's 8 cubic yards a week. But the first line shows that this customer has two 4-yard dumpsters going once a week. That's 8 yards, and they're both going to the landfill. The diversion rate is 0%, and the current bill under the current rate structure that the city has in place is $517. If this customer does nothing with the new rate structure, if it's approved by City Council, their bill will go up 6.4% or up to $550 per month. This same customer, if they're at 50% diversion, or if one of their dumpsters is dedicated to recycling and one is dedicated to food scraps, their current bill is $389, almost $390 per month. With the new rate structure, they would get a price break of almost 19%, or down to $316 a month. This really is the fulcrum, or the balancing point that we were looking for. We wanted there to be a point at which customers saw some sort of a price break, at least a neutral scenario for them as far as the new rates concerned, or as it relates to the existing rates. So 50% we established as the target for businesses generally to see some sort of price break. But if they get even higher in diversion, if customers are able to achieve an even greater diversion rate, like we see in the bottom example here, if 75% of that waste stream is getting diverted from the landfill, the price would go from $332 per month under the current rates all the way down to $203 approximately, or an even greater price break or an even greater decrease of almost 39%. In other words, what we took the range from the top of the price or top of the rates for the month to the bottom, and we just expanded it. We made it greater. We made it, instead of $517 to $330, we made it $550 to $202. We took it and just stretched it. The disparity or the discrepancy between trash and diversion now is greater. There's more incentive, significantly more incentive to divert from the landfill. Okay, Eric. And this is the same slide that we just saw, just in a much simpler format. This is somewhat what it would look like on paper if it showed up on your bill. You would be paying $517 a month currently, and if you were diverting nothing and the new rates went into effect, it would be $550 a month. However, if this customer wanted to divert half of the waste stream, they could cut their bill down to $316 per month, or to $203 per month if they got 3/4 of it, or 75% diverted from the landfill. Okay. What this does to customer bills. This is important. We know a lot of businesses don't necessarily want to or need to work with staff or get technical assistance from staff to change their service levels or to get the system in place. They may just be able to get a couple of containers free, by the way, through our Recycle at Work program, and call the hauler and get something going. But it's difficult to do that if you don't really know or don't really understand what your services are. The current bill that the city is sending out says something very similar to this, where you have trash, dumpster, and it's $865 per month. Doesn't tell you anything about the size of it. Doesn't tell you anything about the frequency. It's not a lot of information, and we don't think that's adequate. The Solid Waste Committee's told us that's not adequate. You need to fix that. You need to get more information to people. There's also a dumpster rental. This is what I was talking about earlier, where it actually chips away at some of that 50% savings. It's an additional cost to that customer, and it doesn't really help in assessing how much waste you have or what your bill is trying to tell you. Same thing for recycling. There really is no size or frequency information, and there's a dumpster rental associated with that. This is an actual customer here in the city. This is their bill currently on a monthly basis. This new bill, or this customer's new bill with the new billing system, with the new rate structure and our new billing system, will allow us to provide this information. Trash dumpster, the size is 4 yards. There's one of them out back, and it gets picked up 4 times a week. This is the cost. The rental fee, the monthly rental fee, is gone. It's been folded into the rate structure. Same thing for recycling. We've gotten rid of the rental fee. We've folded that into the monthly fee. But we've stated the size of the container. There's one, and it's picked up twice a week, and this is the cost. And then this is the total bill. This sort of information will allow businesses to self-audit. It'll give them a starting point for working on their trash services. If they want to divert more, recycle more, or start composting, they can figure out on their own what they need to do to change their services. Or it's a starting point to actually just call our office and say, this is what I've got, can you help me? We get into our billing system, we can help you change your service levels. At this point, we have Karen Gumtow is going to talk about our online calculator. It has the existing rate structure in there with the new rate structure, and it allows anyone currently, this is up to date, it's online, it's live, it allows business to actually figure out what their rates are and what they could get to on a monthly basis as far as diversion and costs. So, Karen, go ahead.
Hi. This is our website, sbrecycles.org, and we've put a link to the rates calculator right off of the home page. This explains about the proposed business rates, business food scraps, and you can also go straight to the online bill calculator, which is part of the proposed rates page. This explains a little bit about how to use the online calculator, and we're going to go straight to the software. What you do with this is you put in the containers that you actually have at your business, so you can figure out what's the impact to my bill. It also allows you to figure out, if I added recycling, how much money would I save? So the handout that we've given you shows a typical customer bill. So I'm going to put the containers in for this customer. Until we have the bills redone, right above the pie graph, which shows that your recycling progress, it lists your containers, the number of containers, and the frequency. That's what you can put into the online calculator to see what your bill is going to look like. So for this particular customer, we see that they have a 4 recycling dumpster. They've got one of them, and it is collected Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which is 3 days a week. They also have a 4-yard trash dumpster. One of them also collected 3 days a week. So you can see here that it shows the cost for each of these containers, the current cost, the cost with the new rate, and also the weekly volume, which is important if you're going to experiment with changing your services. So down here at the bottom of the calculator, you can see that your current costs are $1,087, and your cost with the new rates was $1,073. This customer saved a little bit of money because they are already at 50% diversion. And this is their total amount of waste here in this column, which is 24 cubic yards. I want to show you something else here, which I'm going to add a green waste container. All businesses can get 96 gallons of green waste and trash for free. And this is how it's reflected in the calculator. It shows a charge for this container, but down here it shows credit for free green waste, so it's subtracted down here. So now what happens if we want to experiment and change this customer so they've got a little bit more recycling? The first thing we're usually going to do is, because this customer has frequent pickups, let's just try replacing one of the trash pickup with a recycling pickup. So we know that their trash container was a 4-yard, and it was done emptied 3 times a week. So now we're going to see what happens if we reduce that to 2 times a week. Then their recycling container, which is also 4 yards, we're going to have to increase the pickups to make up for the amount of trash that we've decreased. So we're going to put that at 4 times a week. So now you can see, if you go down here, that this is exactly the same amount of cubic yards, which is really important when you're experimenting, because how much trash you have isn't going to change. It's just what container you put it in. So now this customer is at 66% diversion, and under the new rate structure, they're going to be paying $800. If you look back up here, the former bill was $1,078. So they saved $278 just by doing this. A couple of features on this are, if you want to print this out, you can print this form. You can also print the form where you've done the experiment. And if you want to start over, you can also clear this form, and it will allow you to start over. So that's how you can figure out what the impacts of this rate structure are on you.
Thank you, Karen. We have just a few slides left on the rate study itself. Any questions on what Karen just presented? Just a few more slides on the proposed rate structure, and then, like I said earlier, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll present the food scraps component. So we realize we have recycling staff that are out there in the street, in the field, on a daily basis, and we know that there are several challenges to get recycling going at your business. It's not always easy, or it's not always completely straightforward to make a trash container turn into a blue, or switch it out for a blue recycling container, or for a green waste or food scraps container. One of the primary or most common issues that we find is a lack of space, especially in the downtown corridor. Another challenge is staff participation or education. If your custodial staff or your staff at the end of the night carrying out the trash from the kitchen doesn't go to the right container, the program essentially is not working. So staff participation is important. And then just getting started. A lot of times it's getting over that initial hump and making the making the step to actually do something and change the way that your operation runs. Go ahead, Karen. What we have available, there are the solutions that are out there in our quiver that we provide to businesses for dealing with the space constraint issue is probably the most common or the most successful to date has been bin sharing, where a business on State Street has only enough capacity in their enclosure for one container. There's room for a 2-yard dumpster that was built 35 years ago. It's difficult to get another container in that enclosure. So what we've been doing with great success for the last couple of years is actually identifying a neighbor to that business that has space or an enclosure as well. And one can become the recycling container and one can become the trash container, and they share each other's services. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure our staff in the last 2 years of doing this have had success in all the situations where they've worked on sharing arrangements between businesses. Sometimes it's between 2, sometimes it's between 7 or 8 businesses where they're all sharing a couple of enclosures to make the recycling or the diversion services possible. We are adding material types or adding categories to the waste stream or to the services that are available. With food scraps being introduced with this new rate structure, there's a yellow container in the business sector or another component of the waste stream that can be pulled out of the trash containers. And it really realistically does allow us to make smaller allocations or put it in smaller containers. We're taking pieces of it apart. So a lot of situations where there was a dumpster, a 4-yard dumpster, we can have 3 or 4 95-gallon carts doing the same thing. And that actually does work in several situations. Something that we're actually researching that's out there in other jurisdictions in, I think, a pilot basis, but is this concept of split dumpsters, where as you can see, this is under development for us. We're still researching this. This is not a service available yet in the city of Santa Barbara. But we're considering this for a situation or business where there is absolutely no opportunity for sharing with their neighbor, and breaking it out into smaller containers doesn't work, and there's nowhere to put a recycling cart outside of that enclosure or a food scraps cart. So this is an opportunity or a potential opportunity for a business to actually have in one enclosure 2 material types. The truck would come on a Wednesday, say, lock the left side, the lid on the left side, that's the recycling, and be able to dump the garbage or the trash on the right-hand side of that container. And then vice versa. They show up on Friday, they lock the right-hand side of the lid and release the left, and the recyclables can be dumped into the recycling truck. A pretty elegant solution for some customers, and when and if that becomes necessary, I think we're going to work hard to make that a service that's available to the business community. Go ahead, Karen. How to get started, I'm going to hand it off to Leaf. Make sure your microphone's on, Leaf, or I'll make sure. And he's going to talk about the technical assistance that we provide to businesses. He's actually out in the field. Leaf's one of our recycling coordinators. He's doing it. He's out there on a daily basis, making a lot of diversion happen and saving a lot of businesses money.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, so if you were a business out in the, in the city here and you wanted to start a recycling program or improve the recycling program that you already have, and you call our office and you say, I want to get some recycling bins for inside your business, or you just don't have any recycling yet and you want to get something set up, I'd be one of the staff that would help you with that program. So the ways that we help businesses is, the first thing we do is we want to make sure that you have the right size container and frequency of pickup for actually the materials that you have. Sometimes we'll go to a business and they'll have their trash dumpster that they just throw everything into, and they don't ever even look at it before it gets picked up. But in reality, it's only half to 2/3 full every time that it's collected. So they're actually, in essence, paying for air to be collected. So that's the first thing that we do, is make sure that the containers are right-sized and that the frequency matches the waste generation you're actually producing. So if your containers aren't in alignment with what you're actually generating, we'll make some adjustments for you. We'll put together a proposal, do a cost analysis if need be, and show you what those changes will be. and then we'll actually make those changes for you with the hauler so that it's all really simple and easy for you as a business in the community. So part of our technical assistance that we have is the Recycle at Work program, which provides free indoor bins and technical assistance with the recycling, and then the food scraps recovery and composting, which has been a pilot for a couple of years now, and Eric will be talking more about that later. So the technical assistance, the main services that we provide, I'm one of the recycling coordinators. There's 2 full-time recycling coordinators in our division, and we assist businesses with several different methods or strategies for increasing diversion in their business. One of the things that we offer are trainings for their administration, both administrators or staff or janitors, whatever education that needs to happen from the top down to the people collecting the trash and taking it out. Want to make sure that there's clear communication and everybody's aware of what goes where, and so that the whole process is being communicated to everyone on board. And then we provide a limited amount of free indoor containers, up to 50 per business, and this really helps businesses with the source separation inside their business so that they separate the material where it's actually generated, and then it can be taken straight out to the recycling dumpster that's also blue. And then we do economic analysis for businesses as well. A lot of times businesses want to know, well, what's this going to cost? How much am I going to be saving? What is this going to look like on my bill? And so we'll show them in in an economic analysis, as Karen was mentioning earlier, basically just plugging in the numbers, and it shows what their diversion will go up to and what their cost savings will be. I'll talk more about the economic analysis in a minute. So what's recyclable? A lot of times businesses aren't aware of all the material that's recyclable. There's actually a huge amount of material that can be recycled, both in the carts and can service, which is a little bit separate from the dumpster service. But in dumpsters, you can recycle all the metals. A lot of times people don't realize that scrap metal has a really high value, and that we want to recycle as much of that material as possible. All paper and cardboard, except for waxed cardboard, currently it has to go in the trash, but it actually can be composted once the composting program's going. And all plastics, we try and encourage people to rinse them or make sure they look clean so that the plastic load doesn't get contaminated with residue. Wood and glass bottles and jars. So there's a lot of material. A lot of times people don't understand the wide range of material that can actually go into the recycling stream. So this is the cost analysis or economic analysis that we were talking about earlier. Karen went over this in pretty good detail. And this is an example of a business on the Mesa, Dino's Pizza, or Dino's Pizza, who actually started out, they called us, they didn't have any recycling at all. Their dumpster was half full of cardboard all the time, and they felt bad that it was going to the landfill. They wanted to do something about it, so we helped set them up with a program. Go ahead and do next slide. And basically, working with the neighbors, we actually set up a bin sharing agreement between them and 2 of their neighbors so that there was 1 trash, 1 recycle, both dumpsters for 3 businesses to share. And when you do that, there's less bin rentals, and it's just more efficient collection of waste material when you get people sharing the bins. And so each business saw a significant savings. This business saw, I think it says on the next slide, or maybe right on here. Sorry, wrong way. So this business, if I remember correctly, saved about $100. So yeah, it's $90 here on the slide. And they were very happy with that. They felt good about not throwing this material in the landfill anymore. They were working with their neighbors to do something collaboratively that was, improving their waste situation, and they were saving money. So, win-win on many different levels. Next slide. So that's the end of my part. And to wrap it up, basically when businesses outreach to us and they want our help, we just try and make it as clear and simple for them as possible. Try and make everything color coordinated. Blue is recycling, green is green waste, yellow is food scraps, and trash is beige. And we try and make the whole process very clear, educate everyone involved, And it's usually, once people are doing it, everyone's usually really happy and positive about the outcomes. So thank you very much for your time, and turn it back over to Stephen.
Thank you, Leif.
Thank you.
We have a quick interview with the owner of Aldo's restaurant, who's been participating in the food scrap program.
I've been involved with the composting program in the pilot stage from the beginning. I compost at home. It has always sort of bothered me about our business how dirty it really is, how much we waste and how much we throw away and how much we use. Firstly, when we started recycling and we were able to, the recycling is cheaper than regular trash pickup. So we were able to cut back on the size of our dumpster at that point. When, with the composting program, we've actually been able to cut a day out of our garbage pickup. So instead of getting three pickups a week, we do 2 pickups a week. And that's substantial savings on anybody's budget. We have 3 trash cans set up by our dishwasher station. 1 for trash, 1 for recycling, and 1 for composting. Then the dishwashers at the end of their shift transport the garbage out to the dumpsters. One of the things that I found was that to have 3 types of trash bags, the composting requires a special bag. What we've done to delineate our trash from our recycling is we use a different type of trash bag. So we use a clear plastic bag for the recycling and the black trash for the trash. The city has been real good with providing materials both in English and Spanish, which for our particular business and type of business is very important. But truthfully, it's not that complicated.
Thanks, Eric. So that Mark has been with the program since the beginning. Is that right? The Aldo's restaurant. They've been with the Food Scraps Composting Program, the pilot program, since April of 2007. And he's obviously very enthused about it. And we're pleased that they've been as successful as they have. But there will be more information on that program itself in just a few minutes after we're done with this. But there's one more meeting, one more forum or public meeting that we're going to have like this that's available to the business sector in this room, David Gebhardt room at 630 Garden Street. It'll be at 9 o'clock next Tuesday, the 19th of May. And go ahead, Eric. Let's see what else we got. And then we've got all of our resources that are online. A lot of this created by Karen, who was showing you the online calculator. But it's an excellent resource for someone who's just interested and wants to get into the details of the proposed new rate structure, to get into the calculator and figure out what their current service levels are and how that could change with the new proposed structure, how they can change, or a business can change their service levels to save some money. And then there's a good deal of information about both of our Recycle at Work program and the staff that are available for technical assistance to get that going, and the Food Scraps Recovery program, which again is going to be covered in a lot more detail in just a few minutes. Go ahead, Eric. And we are at sbrecycles.org on the internet, and our direct line, our main line to the office is 564-5631. So if there are any questions from the public or anyone that's here today, please call us, provide us emails, provide us comment via phone, come to our office, whatever. We're looking for feedback. We're looking for questions. We want to get as much of the dialogue going, or all the issues that you have as the business community taken care of and resolved. Any questions at this point before we take a break? Let's take a 5-minute break, stretch for a minute. We're going to load up the food scraps presentation. Okay. To you on our food scraps recovery and composting program. That will be done by Eric Loella, the program coordinator for the Environmental Services Division. He'll talk about the pilot program a little bit, and then how the new rate structure actually impacts the businesses or saves businesses money by subscribing to this service. Eric?
Thank you, Stephen. So again, my name is Eric Loella. I'm an environmental specialist here at the city, tasked with putting together a lot of the logistical details and a lot of the business outreach plan with our team for food scraps composting. Why food scraps is a question we're getting asked by everyone, And I think this pie graph in itself pretty much explains why we're going after it. If we look what's in our trash right now, it is by far and away the largest item. Compostable materials are 66%. And by and large, because it's the largest material, in addition to the fact it's quite obviously not a metal can, it's easy to separate. And so that's one of the principal focuses of our new diversion efforts is food scraps, because as we look at what's left and what we need to go after, it is an easy and attainable number. How the program works, 4 simple steps. Food scraps are collected at the actual business in the prep room, or they're collected after plate scrapings are done in containers that we've either provided or the business utilizes in compostable bags. Food scraps are hauled to a commercial facility. We're working with Engel and Gray regional composters up in Santa Maria. They're taking care of the compost, and then they are finishing that compost, and it's sold as a valuable soil amendment to local agriculture, to schools, parks, anywhere where soil is needed. What goes in the yellow bin? We've again tried to make it exceptionally easy. One of the great things we're anticipating for this program is the ease at which businesses can transition into it. Principal reason is most things that don't go in your recycling go in your food scraps bin. And that involves anything from bones, meat, shells from a seafood restaurant, to your traditional veggies and carrot tops and things you'd think of as composting. We can also take your plate scrapings, napkins left over from a business. We have one in our pilot businesses that actually is doing their hand towels in their bathroom. It extends all the way out into there, in addition to waxed cardboard boxes, which are not recyclable, but are compostable because of that wax coating on them. We can take those on in the composting program as well. Milk cartons, and then there's been a resurgence in this compostable tableware, so people call it spudware or cornware. We can take those materials too right now, and that can also increase some businesses' ability to divert. Other cities that compost, we'd like to say we're the first at this one. Santa Barbara leads in so many levels, but unfortunately a few people have beat us to the punch, but we're chasing some really exceptional examples. South of us, Santa Monica has launched a business composting program. It's quite successful. And then north of us, some pretty big cities, but 2, and I'd like to point out Berkeley specifically. Berkeley is only about 20,000 more residents than Santa Barbara, relatively similar size city, doing exceptionally well in San Francisco. Really astounding programs capturing an incredible quantity of food scraps, hundreds of businesses participating, little if any complaints, and a successful program, several of them 5 years complete. So what does that mean in California? 3,000 businesses already have food scrap composting programs. That's not available to them. They are actually participating. And that really speaks to the commercial viability and the maturity of these kinds of collection systems in the state of California. And 2 million residents now are participating in municipal composting programs. Who's composting here in Santa Barbara? As Stephen mentioned earlier, in our pilot program, we have taken a cross-section of the business community that represents what we think is the different sectors that generate food scraps. And we've gone out to them and we've outreached and said, can you be a part of this pilot program? They've enthusiastically said yes. And we are 2 years plus now with several of these businesses. And we started what we would say the benchmark. Cottage Hospital, Stephen often quotes their food service director. He said, you know, if we get one fruit fly in this program, it's done. And we're 2 years plus running with Cottage Hospital, not one fruit fly. We collect from them. They're excited about the program. They can't wait to expand. We have the zoo. We do our city facilities. I'm going back for just a quick second. That's all right. We have coffee shops, the Coffee Cat right next to our offices, 3 restaurants, Santa Barbara City College, their entire culinary arts program is involved in this. Really exceptional success stories all over Santa Barbara, including 2 schools. And we piloted the schools because the school district is interested in diversion. They're interested in savings. And we're actually going to be rolling out this program to as many of their schools as possible in the coming year and then years after that. Here's 4 pictures to show you several of the operations. This is Cottage Hospital right here. There's their dishwashers, a fairly large industrial operation. This is Pete's Coffee, uptown, with their 2 yellow containers in addition. These are their neighbors' containers there. This is the zoo. And then this is the dumpster at Peabody Charter School. Different applications, same program. Successful in all of them. We've been getting a lot of questions from businesses. We've been getting questions from city departments. And we've taken the 4 principal questions that we think need to be debunked, the myths that are surrounding the food scraps discussion. Composting myth number 1, doesn't my food break down in the landfill anyway? And it's half true, but we really look at this as actually something, talking to science in the field, there's some scary stuff that get emitted from landfills. It's something we've come to research quite a bit on, and we've had the EPA and the Integrated Waste Management Board, two of the leaders in terms of the scientific research on this, tell us those are the things that come out of landfills. And it turns out they're dangerous for our climate in terms of global warming. They can be dangerous to human health, and they're things we just basically don't want to have to deal with. So what's the solution for that? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead and scroll back. I'm sorry. And I'm going to get to that, a more in-depth answer to that in just a minute. The second myth we get quite often is that trucking food scraps to Santa Maria is farther than trucking them to Tehigas. So aren't we just going to increase our carbon footprint? Aren't we going to burn more diesel? I've heard that from a lot of different people, and it's an honest question. We're going farther, so isn't our impact not being offset? Well, what we found is we went and talked to the EPA. Go ahead. And this is what they told us, and this is what they're posting on their websites now. Landfills are the single largest source of man-made methane in the United States, by far and away. Methane, they're telling us now, when we look in the short term, is 72 times worse for global warming, more impactful than carbon dioxide. Composting food produces no methane. Food breaking down in the landfill produces lots of methane. Reason for that is, as Stephen mentioned earlier, when you pile all that soil on, you basically make unavailable oxygen to all the bugs that live down there. And so it turns out the kinds of bugs that eat food in the landfill can only generate methane. They can't generate CO2. So the same kind of materials, they have two options. One can go to a compost pile, no methane. Or it can go to a landfill. We bury it. Even a well-managed landfill, it all turns into methane. And what we're looking at is the result is landfills are one of the places we just can't bury organic materials. The third, this is something we got from Sally Brown. She's a PhD. She's a senior scientist with the EPA. She works specifically on composting. And this is what she told us. She said, you know, guys, you could truck your food scraps to Chile to compost them if you really needed to. And we said, Sally, are you sure? She said, yeah, I've done the calculations. Methane is so important at mitigating. Not producing it is so important, even if you take into fact driving your trucks all the way to South America. So we actually have a little map here. There's Santa Barbara right there, going all the way down through Central America, all the way to southern Chile. We still win. So if we are only hauling them an extra 35, 40 miles to Santa Maria, we think that's something that can work out in the calculations right now. The next composting myth is composting is more expensive than disposal. We've talked a lot about those equations that our staff have run through in terms of diversion. And here's an example, Village Modern Foods. There's someone that's excited about being a part of the program. They're not currently a participant. We ran their numbers and we said, can we show these to the community? They said, yeah, we'd love that. Right now they have some recycling. They're paying $3,000. This is an annual number, not a monthly number. Their trash cost with high recycling drops pretty substantially, almost $2,000. They think that's attainable. They think that's achievable. This is the question we've been getting asked quite a bit. What about those compostable bags? Aren't they more those corn bags, different sizes? So we actually went out and we did a survey of the different bag costs out there, and we came across an average number of bags we thought would be used by a business. And we incorporated that into the cost equation. So we're looking at about $489 in bags, including that increased cost for those new type of bags, that third type of bag. We're still looking at a substantial savings, $1,387 annually. And that's for a relatively small generator. Go ahead and go to the next one. Here's another one. This is a downtown restaurant in the downtown area, located close to our office. Right now they have low recycling, but they do want to make a difference. They said, yeah, we're interested in composting and we want to increase our recycling programs at the same time. So we said, well, let's model that. Well, there's your cost per bags, another $978. Total savings, $3,500 plus annually. They think it's achievable. We think it's achievable. They have the space for it. They're just waiting to start the program. The last one, and this is one I've been universally asked and we're excited to have a positive answer to, is we're already working with County Health. County Health will not deny your permit if you're a part of the food scrap composting program. In fact, there have been several cities that we've talked to that said we've actually had a decrease in complaints. We've actually had a reduction in vectors. This program is not a threat to your permit. This is actually something that can clean up your restaurant. It can clean up the waste area and back. And we're seeing that time and time again. Food is already in the trash. We're just asking for it to be put in a different container, into a yellow container now. It's subject to the same health regulations as trash. It's not managed differently. We're not asking you to compost in your restaurant, just a different container to place it. The program has worked at Cottage Hospital, by far and away the highest health code standard. They have their own certification under OSHPD that requires them to run an exemplary facility. And we're working with county EHS staff. We've already met with their supervisor in charge of restaurant inspections. She's enthusiastic about the program, and we're working closely with her to make sure that any hiccups that we encounter are smoothed over and that businesses have a solid and comfortable transition into our new food scraps composting program. And finally, this is something that a lot of people have said, what are you going to do with the compost? And really, we think this sums it up right here. We're turning a liability, burying food, organic materials in the landfill, into an asset. And this is something we can utilize everywhere in our community. That's Fairview Gardens out in Goleta. They've expressed interest in our compost. Every farmer we've talked to says we can't wait for it. That's food production. We're taking the food scraps that we generate here in Santa Barbara, we're turning them into compost in Santa Barbara County, and then we're bringing them back within our own county to grow more food for our community. Go ahead. Schools, this is Harding School using some of their compost in their garden. The schools have universally expressed interest in using it. Peabody Charter School has already laid quite a bit of it on their fields. And then here in the parks in the community, the city of Santa Barbara already currently uses angle and gray compost on our fields to help grow higher quality grass with a reduction in pesticides and in water application. So how to start composting in your business? Our staff can work with you. All the same elements that Leafs talked about in the previous presentation we'll take care of with you. We'll calculate your cost savings. We'll figure out how much capacity you need. And like we said, we're not generating a new material. It's already in your trash. So in a lot of situations, we can downsize the size of containers that you're currently using, and we can enter into that third container. We're going to potentially look at bin sharing agreements for this. We've got a lot of options available, and we can definitely take care of a lot of the logistics for a business. We'll show you where to place the containers, and we can work with your staff in the training level. We can speak Spanish and go into the restaurant and work with the staff at any time that's convenient for them. We can come back and do multiple trainings. We'll make sure that your staff are comfortable with the program, have the signage they need, in addition to the containers, to make the program go off without a hitch. You can give us a call right there. It's the same number as earlier, 564-5631, or sbrecycles.org, and that's us. And any questions I can answer about the food scraps program, we're excited to work with you. Thank you. Stephen? Thanks, Tony.
Looking forward to next Tuesday's forum. We may do one more in an afternoon setting so that other businesses that weren't able to make any of these morning meetings can also attend this forum. Again, any questions, feel free to call us at our main line, 564-5631, or check out our website. We all have all of our email addresses on there as well. Okay. Division in the finance department. We're in charge of the waste hauling contracts with Marburg and BFI, and we run all the recycling programs in the city, residentially and in the commercial sector as well. In 2005, we asked the city council to consider a solid waste strategic plan to get us to 70% diversion, or to divert 70% of all the solid waste that the city is generating from landfill disposal. The council approved that in September 2005, and it included a number of programs and projects and efforts to get the city diverting the majority of its waste stream. And the policy was actually, or the document at the end was actually modified to actually say we will maximize